Hi and welcome back. We're looking at variables and data types, part 2, which is now focused on how we actually use those data types to create variables to hold that information. So hello again, it's Dr. Mitchell, here to talk to you about those different data types we talked about in the first video, ints, doubles, and booleans, how variables store information using memory in the computer, how that memory for the variable is holding actual primitive data, and how we can create constants that don't change values after we create them. So let's look at why would we even create variables in the first place. So let's say that I am wanting to write this sentence for several students. So let's say I have Mary has 2 notebooks for CS class. Okay, and then now I want to write that same sentence for another student. Let's say Spencer has 4 notebooks for English class. Okay, and I have one more student in my class that I'm going to also write this sentence for. So Sophia has 6 notebooks for history class. As you can see, this can get really repetitive writing this sentence out, even for these 3 students, but even more so as I continue to write this for additional students. Because what if we wanted to write this sentence for everyone in the whole class? What about if I wanted to write that sentence for everyone in the school? This would get really tedious and take forever writing that sentence over and over again. So how could I do that a little bit more quickly? If you notice, these sentences basically have only a few different words in each of them. What's only changing is the name that I'm putting there, how many notebooks they have, and for what class it's for. So I can replace that information that's changing with variables. So with the name, I could represent that with a variable called first name. For the number of notebooks, I could represent that information with a variable called num notebooks. And for the number of classes or the name of the class that information is for, could be represented with a variable called course. So quite simply, a variable is just a name that's given to a memory location that's going to hold a particular value. So for example, in the previous video, we had a string that we stored, a string of text that was stored inside of an envelope that had a name. So that was the memory location for that information. So let's look at this example program. So the first line in this program is string name equals Mark Dean, which is declaring and initializing a string variable. It's declared to be called name of the type string, and it's storing the information Mark Dean. On the next line, I have double average grade, which is only just declaring that's variable in existence, but it does not currently contain anything just yet. So I've set the memory aside for that value. On the next line, I now initialize the average grade variable with a value of 92.6. Then I have a constant, and I know that this is a constant because of the keyword final. And I can also tell because of the fact that the name of the variable is written in all caps. So it's given the value of 4, which means that the rest of the program cannot change this value other than on that particular line. Then I have a Boolean variable called isEnrolled that I've declared, and I've initialized it to a value of true. Remember that Booleans can only have the values of true or false. So next, I now print out that first line of text, which is using here name plus has. So name is going to refer to the value that's stored there. So in this case, it's Mark Dean. Then it prints a space and then has and then space, and then the num classes variable, which is storing the value of 4 right now. And then it attaches the text of classes with a comma and a space and moves my cursor to the next line. The next line of code is now going to print and average grade is plus AVG grade or average grade, which average grade is just storing the value of 92.6, so that is what is printed to my console. Then my next line is going to print name is currently, which name is still holding Mark Dean, so I get to reuse that without having to actually write all that information out again. So it prints Mark Dean is currently. And then my last line of text will print enrolled at school, and then the value that's stored in is enrolled, so which is going to print true after that statement. Notice that my cursor is still at the end of that line because I used a print and not a print line. So what should we take away from this? As a reminder, we have 3 different data types that we primarily use in this course: int, doubles, and booleans, like we introduced in the previous video. All of those variables that we can create have memory that's associated with them that can hold information. And if those variables are primitive types, they hold actual primitive values. And if I create a variable that's declared final, then I cannot change it because it is a constant for my program. So thanks. See you again soon.